Hello, today is the 14th of September 2024. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls and make some predictions. Also, it's the weekend. We're going to take a look at the longer term picture with a possible change in the long-term wave count. It's my trading plan for Monday, September 16th, 2024. Please remember my calls can be wrong. If you're going to put your own money at risk, do so at your own risk. Look for the pattern with the early low, which is this, and Monday's pattern should have the early high. We said if the rally was to continue unabated, we needed to gap over these highs, and we did. This is what we said. These are the patterns we should see next week. Today is Carol Ann's F25. That's a big number. These dates identify possible changes in trend. If there is a change in trend, it tends to occur within 3 days of the date. But if you have the date, it doesn't obligate you to have a change in trend. If there is a change in trend, the bigger the number, the bigger the change. We've had quite a big rally, so if this is going to work, if this is the top, which we don't know at this point, his work calls for a sizable drop. So if you're a bull, it's important we don't have a top in this area. Well, let's go over the patterns first. This is a pattern which usually rallies throughout the day. That's not what this is. Time doesn't run out until Monday morning. We gap over this high Monday morning, all is forgiven. Otherwise, that's a negative pattern, and we should see lower prices even if we don't close down. We also gapped up, hit higher highs, and if you look at this dotted line, which is the closed under all these highs, that's a negative pattern. Also says either you gap and take these highs out, or you'll see lower prices. There is a higher MEJT target, 5630.35. If we don't gap down smartly, the rules call for it to print, but I'm not that confident that one's going to work. MEJT almost always leaves a failed target at major changes in trend. This is Carol Ann's date, and I think it has a lot going for it, although it's not confirmed yet. During the day, MEJT said all these squiggles were going to retrace. This last one hasn't retraced yet, 5630.35, and that gives us the target. Well, let's go over the wave count. We're going to start with the longer term wave count and work our way down. Since October, we've had this long-term wave count. This is a clear ABC. It called the low within 3 decimal places. I know other people call this a 5-wave structure. That's the wrong count. It's a clear 3-wave structure. There's no way to count this as a 5 without breaking Elliott's rules. And it's important to realize that B waves can go anywhere. You can have a wave which is pretty strong like this and still be a wave B. And let's put that in the back of our minds for now. After we completed this, I expected to see a 5-wave rally, which would last years, maybe even a generation, because we just completed a major ABC. And it was easy to count this wave as a 5-wave structure. This wave, you go to the smaller time frames, I just could not count as a 5-wave structure. And that kind of killed my idea, to my surprise. And so I've been counting this whole thing as a 3. Now it's important because if this is a 3-wave structure, then we're going to have another big ABC, which could take a generation, which means we're going to go nowhere for a long time. Whereas if this is a 5-wave structure, we've broken out of a huge consolidation into much higher targets ahead, and that's the count I would have liked to have, but you have to justify it. So it's now possible to call this a wave 1, which we'll get to at the end of the broadcast. Well, here's how I've been counting this. We have this red trend line. We said if we didn't gap over it, it wasn't a valid break, and we didn't gap over it. If you look, that's not a gap. So this break shouldn't stick, and we should retrace to that line. It's one of the reasons I think this number might not work. Well, here's the count I've been using. We have an ABC, C is equal to A in magenta. We have this ABC count. There really isn't a good fib relationship, but there doesn't have to be. But when there isn't, I kind of look for other counts. Now we also have a new trend line here. If we're going to continue higher, we should gap over it. But if we don't gap over it, that's resistance. Now we have a number of non-confirmations here at the high. Here's your MACD. You'll see as we're making a challenge for new highs here, MACD is getting less and less and less. If you look at the NASDAQ, we're nowhere near a new high in the NASDAQ, even though we're near a new high in the S&P, and that's a non-confirmation. So as you break into new highs, you want to see the market gathering strength, not losing it, and you want to see other indices break out to new highs first. Simultaneously. So if this is the right idea, you'd like to find some way to count this as a completed structure from this August low. Well, I had been counting it as an ABC, but I just can't do that anymore. But that's an impulse. That's an impulse, and that's an impulse. And if you use the alternate count, it is possible to count it as a completed five-wave structure. This would be 1, 2, 3, and this does look like a third wave, and that's 4, and that's 5. And if you measure the height of alternate 3, alternate 5 is half. So you've got balance of the waves at that point. Now let's look at another way to count the structure from this low. I wanted this to be a wave 1. This whole thing just doesn't look pretty to me. I've been looking for a way to counter this wave 1, and if we stop here, I think it's possible to do it. Now this was a clear 5-wave structure. Suppose this is an ABC for A. You can now count this as blue A, B, C, and A and C are exactly equal. And if you look at blue B, you want to have an ABC with C and A either equal in price or equal in time. Well, they're not equal in price. But if that's the time for wave C, that's the time for wave A, so they are equal in terms of time. So you've got a valid A, B, C, with everything working with C equal to A, and that could be wave black B. The thing is, black B is so much larger than A, probably isn't the right way to count it. This completed ABC, if we stop here, could be A of black B, and if it is A of black B, we should have a Fibonacci correction of this whole wave down to this low, which was what? That's 47 and change, for 4,700 and change. So if that's the right idea and everything works and it looks pretty, there could be a sizable correction here if this high holds. Now, wave counts just don't have to obey the rules. They have to look pretty, and that's about as pretty as you can get if this holds, and that we don't know yet. But if it does hold, it's probably A of black B with a sizable drop coming. Now this is in tune with Carol Ann's date, and it's in tune with mid-September to late October being the year's relatively weakest period. So if you're a bull, you really want to see us gap over this high, because if we don't and we start down, it could be a long way down. We have to use the mixed signals rules. Monday's pattern has the early high, doesn't tell us where we open. It's bullish, there's a higher target. Unless we gap down smartly, the rules call for it to print. Be aware the system nearly always leaves a failed target of major changes in trend, and this one's right at the high where it should be. It's negative. Friday's normally bullish pattern didn't close near the high. Also, we gapped up, hit a higher high, we closed under intraday highs. Unless we gap and promptly overtake Friday's high, we should see lower prices even if we don't close lower. On a relative basis, mid-September to late October is the market's weakest period. Doesn't mean it has to drop in that period, it just means it's weaker than the rest of the year. September 14 is a Caroline spiral calendar hit, and the bigger the number, the more significant, the bigger the reversal, if it is a reversal. We're not required to top here, but if we do, his work calls for a sizable drop. There's a wave count which is compatible with the top here. Bulls need to gap over resistance to continue the rally unabated. We have the non-confirmations on the MACD and the NASDAQ and some others. The calendar, the wave count, they're all working against pulls here, but I have no signal unless and until the reversal starts. So I think we haven't seen the high for the market. I have us going much higher, because if the count I show this correct, we're going to rally for a generation. But as far as this is concerned, it's a possible short-term top, and if this holds, which we don't know yet, but if it holds, it could be a very sizable drop before a very big rally. So if you're a bull, you want to see this continue, but if we drop here, the bottom could fall out over a relatively short period of time. It's the pattern with the early high, possible major change in trend, and that's today's call.